When I was a small child, my dad, this is an interesting cat. This is the guy who named me Jefferson Smith and named my older brother Lincoln. Okay, true story. Okay, so he's a different kind of cat. And in our family, on Halloween, you couldn't just trick or treat. You couldn't just come to our house and knock on the door and expect to receive candy, because that would be begging. You had to perform a skit or sing a song or tell a joke to earn your Tootsie Pop. And this is very embarrassing for the other people in the family. And kid would come up, trick or treat. Do your skit. Do you have a joke? So we lobbied our father until ultimately we succeeded in regime change. We didn't oust our father. It sort of became a more typical Halloween family. And inevitably that year came up our many steps, a 4-year-old girl dressed as a fairy princess holding her mother's hand, knocking on our door with her barely a fist. We opened it. And she said, "Trick or treat." And we put a piece of candy in her bag, and her eyes filled up with tears. And her mother said, "You don't understand. She's been preparing her skit all year." So now you come to our house on Halloween, and you have to perform a skit or do a joke or perform a dance, and I tell stories. I want to say just a few things about why I'm encouraged by the effort here and by Barbara's work and by the community leaders who are talking. We hear a lot about access to capital challenges, right? And the only answer I've heard, and I've asked, and we did lots of meetings, and not just the kind of meetings you do because you're trying to win re-election. By the way, I was going to win re-election, right? It wasn't all that close in my district. It was a challenging district, but I'm so nice. But the kind of meetings you do where you're actually trying to learn. What are the challenges that are facing the state? How do we build additional opportunities for access to capital? And one idea I heard was, well, we could further deregulate the banking industry, because that has been proven to build stability in our economy over time. So trying to figure out a way that we can increase access to capital for Oregon homegrown businesses, at the same time not remove significantly the protections of sort of our fiscal system, seems like a legitimate thing to pursue. Hear all the time how, if you talk to construction workers, if you talk to farmers, if you talk to sort of people who are economic development folks, the need to have resources for economic development priorities. Not just sort of state social programs, things that I like and people in my district care about, but, sort of the hard-minded stuff of how are we going to compete in a global economy over time. If we want to retrofit a bunch of public schools and put a bunch of people to work, right, how are we going to fund those projects? If we want to be a global leader in sustainable agriculture, how are we going to sort of get from here to there, right? And we don't hear a lot of appetite for significant increases in general taxation to fund those things. So finding opportunities to fund economic development priorities in our state without raising taxes seems like a really important conversation for the state to have. And one that nobody should be scared of having. And I assure you there are many people scared of having it. Me too. I almost didn't come. No, I came. And it shouldn't be daunting. We should be willing to have a vigorous conversation about how we structure our financial sector and how do we better use state dollars. Because there's a bunch of other people who are having rallies, and not all of them are here, by the way, who are having rallies about critiquing the inefficiency of government processes and government structures. So figuring out how we can better leverage state dollars, keep them in the state, and not just to an out-of-state business, but to more in-state businesses, and not just so we're losing the money on the float, but so we're better leveraging the money on the float. This seems like a legitimate conversation to have, and one that we shouldn't be scared of having. In fact, we should be scared of not having it. You can clap, that's fine. So one of the questions I heard, I have a couple more things and I'll shut up. Don't clap at that. One of the questions I heard was, well, if it was so great, how come it hasn't been done 50 times? Or 49 more? And I think, I'll defer to Barbara's answer. I think it was really helpful. But the other is, I think that what is during Oregon's greatest periods of policy development, it was not a deterrent that other states weren't already doing it, but in fact it was an encourager. Right? At the times when this state has set an example to the nation of what a place can be like, when we have been willing to answer history's questions with a different set of responses. The state that built the bottle bill, that did public beaches, did land use planning, first state to publicly recognize Labor Day, to first enforce the minimum wage, the first state to do vote by mail. The question was, well, haven't 15 states already figured it out? Because then we might just dip our toe into that already pee-ridden water. I haven't said that before. I don't know that I will again. You will not notice it in the prepared words. We're just thinking sort of a swimming pool, a lot of people in there already. You know what I'm saying. But rather that we were willing to be policy innovators, and to me that's the heart of our state. And that's when we're at our best. And not when the triangulation of the existing status quo power structure says, well, you might be willing to do a little piece of that. But if we instead say, what are the biggest challenges facing our state? What are the best ideas to answer them? And let's move towards there. Rather than building ideas around where the power is, building power around where the ideas are. And I think that, and one of the biggest reasons I'm honored and sort of might not just pleased as a thank you and sort of want to encourage and thank you, is I think that's what's bringing a lot of people to this party. And I mean little P party, but maybe a big P party as well. Is that I think even, let's take a different big P party, let's take the Tea Party. I think even they are motivated by an overlapping critique that the systems of government seem to be mostly based on the preservation of the status quo, not on the accomplishment of common problems. And we need to be better able and better willing to build new power centers to answer hard questions. And that's why nobody should be afraid of having this conversation, and in fact why people should be afraid of not having it. And that's why I thank you. The last thing I want to say is because overall, I think the biggest question facing the world, the biggest question facing the United States of America, the biggest question facing our state is how do you build a high road economy? How do you build an economic system that is prosperous, that is sustainable, that is just? And how do you do it in a global context? And how do you do it in this century? And I think most other political questions, not all, it's important civil rights questions, but the huge portion of political questions are either subsets of that basic question or distractions and hogwash. And we need to figure out how to better answer it. And we need to come up with a different set of answers that the only way for Oregon to compete economically is for us to be the cheapest date. Right? There are other ways to drive an economy other than a new set of tax breaks. By the way, that used to be 33% of the overall potential general fund. Now it's about 50%. Right now we are spending about the same on tax breaks as we are on education, public safety, and healthcare combined. That doesn't mean I don't like tax breaks. There's a lot of them I like a lot. A lot. But it does mean we can't play only that game and keep playing that game forever. Right? So we got to consider things like this. So I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you for being willing to be innovators. Thank you for being sort of capacity builders of challenging publicly interested conversations. Thank you for being sort of different economic thinkers about how we can build a cultivation theory of the economy, not only a race to the bottom but a race to the top. I want to thank you for all those things. I want to say please